With the Thor Love and Thunder trailer presumably just right around the corner, at this rate likely to premiere in front of Thor Love and Thunder, how about we take a look at a bunch of our favorite Thor movie Easter eggs and fun details that make us feel all, well, you know. So first off, I'd like to point out that the 2011 Thor is a visual feast of a film. Director Kenneth Branagh and his director of photography, Harris Zambarlukos, crafted a film that sure does have a lot of issues, but stylistically really stands out from the pack. It's visually luscious. Look at this junk. I'm convinced this feast scene is just a metaphor for the look of this film, because it is a feast for them eyes. You feel me? I don't know how else to put this. Anyway, this was before the MCU was so reliant on digital technology, and so not only is it shot on film, it's also chock full of practical sets and creative lighting techniques. For example, the shots inside of the Bifrost house dome thing had to utilize hidden lights carefully planned out with the production designer because, well, they were inside a real freaking dome. This is just a rambly way to point out this shot. What's so special about it? Well, it comes after this shot with Thor struggle busting at the shield base. The camera moves up and away from the base, and we cut to Heimdall watching it all play out, and in his eye is a carefully placed reflection, reminding us visually that he literally is seeing what's going on. It's a small thing, sure, but it's a wonderful example of visual storytelling in a film that, at the very least, is a visually striking piece of work. Something less beloved by many fans and often joked about is the choice to make Thor fill to the brim with Dutch angles, which, if you don't know, basically just means you take the tripod, look at the level, and go, nope, I don't think so. Dutch angles are a great tool in a cinematographer's toolkit, but much like something like, say, lens flares, it can go a bit far. And some might say that Branagh really pulled an Abrams with his use of Dutch angles in Thor. But it turns out there's a very good reason for so many shots to look so very drunk. See, Branagh pulled inspiration from comic books, which of course, since they're a hand-drawn medium, allow for a lot of very fun, often tilty angles. So it turns out there is a purpose, and it's Branagh attempting to crib visually from the source material. Now, moving away from the technical side of things, I'm not a huge fan of cameos, but Thor has some of my favorites. Obviously, there's Stan the Man Lee attempting to lift Mjolnir with his pickup truck and losing the pickup truck's bed in the process. Which, by the way, you'll notice a little later that the truck pulls up in the background of this shot, still missing that half. Cute. But there are two other cameos you might have missed if you've never watched a Thor Easter egg video before. First is this fellow attempted Mjolnir lifter over here, played by J. Michael Straczynski, aka one of the more prolific comic book writers, including work on the Thor comics, and he even helped write the script for this movie. He also created Babylon 5, so, you know, he earned a chance to lift that magic space hammer. Beyond those two, there's also this guy at the celebratory feast. That's Walt Simonson, who, amongst his wealth of credits, had a spectacular run on the Thor comics from 1983 to 1987. Oh, and that is his wife and fellow comic book writer and editor, Louise Simonson. Back to informed filmmaking, though. This scene where Thor is stripped of his armor and, fun circles, that's a scene based on this scene from the 1937 Academy Award winner for Best Picture, The Life of Emile Zola, starring Paul Muni as the titular French author. This isn't Paul Muni, this is Paul Muni, who just 5 years previously had played the titular role in Scarface and is perhaps most well known for being a good-looking guy who just really liked old age makeup for some reason. Anyway, this guy is Joseph Schildkraut, who I believe I'm saying his name right. I think so. I'm very lazy, I don't look anything up. Playing real-life French Army Captain Alfred Dreyfus, who was at the center of the Dreyfus Affair between 1894 and 1906. The long and short of that one was that Dreyfus was convicted of treason, a crime he did not commit, and upon their mistake coming to light, the French government tried to cover it up, and well, it's a famous historical event, so as you can imagine, everything kinda came out eventually. Anywho, the only plot connection here is that it concerns a man stripped of his rank and sent into exile despite being innocent, which, you know, yeah, Loki does technically cause the events that send Thor to Earth, despite the reason really being that he is legitimately unworthy, doesn't listen, etc., but, close enough.
Exactly.
Beyond that, both men are stripped of their fancy buttons. Look at that fancy button. Bye, fancy button. And just to round things out on the original Thor, this is one of those details that I definitely noticed in an ooh, that's neat sort of way before actually realizing, ooh, that's science neat. When Mjolnir arrives on Earth, it creates a crater not unlike a meteor. Well, when something crashes with that much force, it generates an incredible amount of heat, and when sand is hit with that much heat, it turns into glass. Vis-a-vis, all these neat little crystallized boys are glass created by the uninhibited primal heat of Thor's hammer. They couldn't possibly misinterpret that line, right? And now we come to Thor: The Dark World, a sequel directed by one of the best directors of Game of Thrones, and which wound up going quite a bit like that show, in that no one seems to want to talk about it anymore, no matter how much Kevin Feige has continued to integrate it into the MCU, thereby ensuring that we always remember the pain of watching a billion-dollar corporation squander the Ninth Doctor. Anyway, in the following installment, yes, I'm already thinking past this whole section, we meet Korg, who is of the Cronin species. We sorta already got Korg in Dark World. This guy right here is a Cronin warrior, and his general look was directly based on Korg in Planet Hulk, while also being a reference to Thor's first comic book antagonists. We also see via noted mentally unstable scientist Dr. Selvig's big ol' blackboard here that the 616 universe is a concept of some sort within the MCU. Earth 616 is the name of the standard continuity within Marvel Comics. Which you're nerds. But that isn't quite as interesting as another little Easter egg on that board. Right here, you can see that Selvig has written The Fault. Now, the Fault is a rift in space-time created through the detonation of a Terrigen bomb during a battle between Black Bolt and Vulcan. Notably, the Fault was a bridge of sorts to other universes, including the Cancerverse, wherein life had defeated death, and everything wound up not great. Anyway, the concept of the Fault is of course somewhat similar to the tears in reality we've already seen in Loki and Spider-Man No Way Home. And, I guess Morbius. Sure. Seems like a perfect universe-sized threat for some of our MCU heroes to go up against, eh? Just saying, things are getting mighty multiversal around these parts. It's all just putting it out there. Okay, last thing from Dark World, thank God. The killing of Bor. One notable character seen in the opening of the film is Bor Burison, the father of Odin and therefore Thor's grandfather. Later in the film, while being chased by dark elves, Thor accidentally decapitates a statue of Bor, and Loki has this little joke in response.
Well done, you just decapitated your grandfather.
This is a reference to a comic book storyline wherein Loki himself tricked Thor into fighting and killing Bor in Thor number 600. Okay, so here we are. The best Thor movie, and I think it's safe to say most people's opinion, Thor Ragnarok. Blessed be Taika Waititi and all of his works, especially that gay pirate show on HBO Max, #renew our flag means death. Anyway, one of the more obvious gags that you probably didn't miss, but screw it, I love this bit, is Loki's cast of actors portraying his version of the events in Thor: The Dark World. Playing Odin, we have Taika's fellow Kiwi, Sam Neill, Matt Damon in the role of Loki, which made his already well-established gag cameo on Jimmy Kimmel's show all the more poignant, and of course, Luke Hemsworth as Thor.
So mischievous.
Beyond those more famous actors, you've also got a very brief shot of future mythic quest star Charlotte Nickdow. I think it's pronounced Nickdow. Nickdow? Seems like Nickdow is the way to do it, right? Right? That looks like Nickdow to me. Anyway, as Lady Sif. Oddly enough, actor Sif runs away and leaves the Warriors 3 behind in this scene, sort of foreshadowing Sif being absent from the film entirely, leaving the Warriors 3 to die at Hela's hand. Behind the scenes, it was just a scheduling conflict that saved her from the old doomy death, but I'd like to think that this was a sly nod to that predicament. If you were curious, all of Thor Ragnarok was shot in Australia, and at the usual Marvel stages in Atlanta. To achieve the look of New York City for this scene, production utilized the Australian city of Brisbane. which in his commentary Taika Waititi refers to as the closest you'll get to New York in Australia, both geographically and with how it looks. It's very wisely shot too. We never leave this very small area. There's this very New Yorky newsstand here, and the few license plates we see in the background, which is of course replete with yellow taxi cabs, appear to be New York plates. Add a New York City background plate at the back of this shot, and bada bing bada boom, you got yourself a major American metropolis. Now, fun fact, the two college kids who approach Thor for a picture are Shalom Brune-Franklin and Taylor Hemsworth. Shalom is an up-and-coming Australian actress who notably co-starred in the series The Tourist with Jamie Dornan, while Taylor is, you guessed it, related to the Hemsworth brothers and is specifically their second cousin. One of the more shocking moments in Ragnarok is of course Thor getting his eyeball straight yeeted out of his skull by Hela, which of course was all done through this kind of iffy CGI eye hole that simply wasn't added for the film's trailers. Anyway, that loss is foreshadowed earlier when Thor arrives back in Asgard after the whole Grandmaster side quest. It's an easy thing to miss the first time around, but pretty blatant on a second viewing. Now, there are a lot of standout characters in Thor Ragnarok, and one fan favorite has to be Karl Urban's Skurge, who has a memorable arc going from a selfish loser who was given control of the Bifrost by Loki after Heimdall is sent away as a traitor, then granted power via being kind of a spineless doofus, into becoming a hero when he stands up to Hela's forces. Without him, our heroes would not have succeeded in evacuating Asgard and defeating Hela, but that comes with a price, and Hela easily dispatches of him. However, this is after he basically goes out guns a-blazing, which is a reference to his character's extremely memorable final moments, complete with pretty similar circumstances, in Thor number 362, written by Walter Simonson. A cool detail that you definitely couldn't have noticed the first time around is that in his final scene before dying, Odin picks out the spot where New Asgard will wind up in Avengers Endgame. Kinda. Despite this scene being shot in Atlanta, the scene takes place in Norway, and although we don't know exactly where in Norway he dies, we later see in Endgame that the town of Tonsberg, Norway has become New Asgard. Tonsberg has a long history in the MCU, having been the place where Odin defeated the Frost Giants in the prologue to Thor, while in Captain America, the first Avenger, it's the town where Red Skull finds the Tesseract as hidden by Odin. The fishing village used to portray Tonsberg / New Asgard is actually St. Abbs in the Scottish borders. It was also the location for the island Aroda from the Harry Styles music video Adore You. My Harry Styles fans in the house? Woot woot.
You know, you really don't have to do the whole thing every time.
Everything you do is impressive. Point Break.
Thor's password for the Quinjet during the escape from Sakaar sequence is Point Break, a reference to the first Avengers film in which Tony Stark points out that Thor resembles Patrick Swayze's iconic extreme sports junkie / bank robber Bodhi from the film Point Break. The Grandmaster melts a dude whom he refers to as his cousin as a way of introducing himself to Thor. That alien dude's name?
Carlo?
That seems like a pretty clear reference to The Godfather, wherein Michael Corleone has his sister's husband, Carlo Rizzi, unalived by future heart attack recipient Peter Clemenza after accepting Carlo's apology and seemingly forgiving him. Don't know what I'm talking about? Watch The Godfather, it's pretty good. Valkyrie's armor in Ragnarok is sourced from two of her costumes from her time on the Defenders. And just, this is completely unrelated, but check out these two broads walking behind the Grandmaster. I have no idea if they're based on anything, but they remind me of a mix of Barbarella and the twins from one of my favorite Jean Rollin films, The Nude Vampire. There's no reference or anything here. I know that. I really love their outlandish look. Speaking of Valkyrie and shoving in references to more obscure films, per Taika Waititi's commentary track, the way Valkyrie uses a knife to open bottles is a reference to a similar tactic in the New Zealand film Once Were Warriors, starring everyone's favorite Kiwi actor turned spacefaring bounty hunter and father of certain sea-based superheroes, Tamura Morrison. The plot for our lovable God of Thunder's Sakaar misadventure is based primarily around two comic storylines, Planet Hulk and Contest of Champions, the latter of which is where the Grandmaster is from, as he does not appear in Planet Hulk. Also, he's blue. As perhaps a nod to this fact, he presides over the Contest of Champions. Oddly enough, while Hela, the goddess of death, is our main baddie. In Contest of Champions, the Grandmaster is teamed up with Death, aka Thanos' sorta love interest in the comics, whom he literally snaps over. Oh, and the previous champions of the, well, Contest of Champions are seen in statue form on the Grandmaster's towering headquarters. These are the Hulk, obviously, as well as Beta Ray Bill, Bi-Beast, Darkcrawler, aka Nightcrawler, but not that Nightcrawler, Ares, and Man-Thing, which is all super rad. After all, we've waited many moons to finally see Beta Ray Bill in a Thor movie. Of course, when you consider that there's only one champion in the Contest of Champions, R.I.P. Beta Ray Bill, I guess. Okay, I think that's probably enough. Just a few of my favorite things you might have missed in the first 3 Thor flicks. If you're anything like me, you're pretty pumped for whatever Taika Waititi and his team have in store for the 4th installment. Assuming it exists.
This drink, I like it.
I know, it's great, right?
Another!